Joining us this morning is Andhyta Firselly Utami, better known as Utami, the CEO of Policy and Bijak Memilih Co-Initiator. Good morning, Utami. Thank you so much for being here with us. It is our pleasure to have you on board. Now, in regards to this, we just commenced the third presidential debate last night. But again, yes, you were saying there, this forgotten loss in the general election, especially right here in 2024. So I have data right here in Utami. There's a 9,917 individuals from 18 political parties that's running for the parliament. They're spread across 84 electoral districts. They'll be competing for 580 House seats. Meanwhile, 668 individuals are running for regional representative, competing for 136 Senate seats. So these are not small numbers.
Not at all. Those are huge numbers.
Exactly. But of course, I think it happens in parallel every election that they seem have no attraction or there's no attention focus on them. Why is this in your opinion?
There's a few possibilities. Number one, it's much easier to talk about individuals. So when we talk about presidential candidates, we really zero in focusing on each president's track record or presidential candidates' track records, what they've done, and so on and so forth. Whereas when we talk about the legislative candidates, there's an overload of options.
Yes.
Even when you want to talk or compare amongst political parties, there's 18 of them. Right now competing in the national level, and then there's a few more for every electoral district for each party, right? So it's so confusing. There's way too many options. And secondly, we haven't been properly educated in terms of the role of political parties and the role of legislative as well as we do with the presidential candidates, right? It's not as salient. The discussion is a lot more nuanced and confusing, and at the same time there's this prevalent pessimism seeing at political parties as corrupt, right? Like it seems like all of them has a track record in corruption or involved in one way or another. So it fuels this kind of pessimism or like skepticism that I just don't want to talk about the political parties, or they don't even know the individual candidates. Finally, all this ballyhos, these banners, right, don't really help because none of them talk about, for example, the candidates' track records, what they've done. If they're running for the second or third time, what have you done in the past? That's not very salient. We cannot read them from the banners. So even if we want to talk about it, what do we want to talk about? Like there's no substance. And this is partly why at Bijak Memilih, we want to balance this focus, right? So if you open up our website, it's basically a website, bijakmemilih.id. We start not from the presidential candidates, but the track records of the political parties first. So you can actually compare which laws have been voted for or against by which political party. So you can take a look at that. You can look at the track records of corruption of each political parties and their prominent figures. So they're head of the party or other notable candidates that are already ruling right now, for example. And then starting from there, then you can look at which coalition of parties actually propose which presidential candidate. So this helps hopefully balance out a little bit that focus on both the legislative.
You basically reverse the focus itself, starting from the ground zero to the top.
That's actually how it's supposed to be.
That's right.
Yeah. But now reflecting to the last election back in 2019, the public seemed to view the issue of presidential elections as sexier, than the legislative, and the narrative of the presidential election was more prominent. So what is your take on this?
Yeah, as I said, I think partly the way we engage in this discussion surrounding presidential candidates are almost like fan clubs. Like football fan clubs, as an analogy, right? So once you are set on which candidate you're supporting, it almost doesn't matter what they actually say during the debates or what they've done throughout the campaign period, because it ends up being about just which supporters are hyping up their respective candidates. And I can see that even putting the substance of politics aside, which should be about the policy platform, what exact proposal do you have to solve the issue of education, health, and whatnot. It becomes more about the individuals, like the personas. They become this kind of like idols, and people just like talking about them as such. So this is again why I think like shifting the focus a little bit to talk about which political parties have actually supported, let's say, the law on Undang-Undang TPKS, the sexual criminalization law, basically, right? Or the new capital law and whatnot. So you'll have some substance to actually talk about the legislative candidates a bit better.
Yeah. So we have a data right here, actually from Bijak Mamili, where the number of invalid votes in the past legislative election was quite significant, and that is 11% for the House election and 20% for the Regional Representative Council. So what are the odds are we seeing that it's going to repeat again in this 2024 election?
Yeah, it's likely. It's hard to say, but what we do at Bijak Mamili also is to make sure that this number can decline. So part of the political education that we do, beyond showing the track records that I've explained, also is explaining the actual the step by step to actually put your vote in. So what we found from anecdotal stories is part of that. The reason that number appears is sometimes people will for the legislative candidates, they will how do you say it, like
punctured, yeah.
They would basically select more than one political parties, or they would put they would select the political parties on one and then the candidate on another party, which makes the voting paper invalid, basically.
Okay.
So this might come from simply not knowing what they're supposed to do, right? So that's what the education that we do as well is, you can actually vote just for the party if you're confused about the candidate.
Yes.
Or just choose one candidate. So don't put a hole in more than one box.
I mean, that's already a big paper. Remember in 2019, it was a huge paper with like a lot of colors, from the parties, and then a lot of the candidates also. And don't you think it's just because you were talking about the ballyhos or like the posters and whatnot?
The banners all over.
When it goes to legislative or regional representatives, sometimes we don't, because you said we don't know what their agenda is, we don't know about their background. So what we do is basically we see the person that we see the most. Either that's familiar because we've seen them on TVs, or maybe we just know them through communities without knowing their agenda and whatever that's.
This is gonna be my third time voting, I think, or second time voting, and basically what I did was just going through work. I see those ballyhos and banners. It's so familiar because we see it every single day. On the way to work, going back from work, on a daily basis, what we do. That's what we did.
Yes. So why can we switch that mind? I mean, we're living in the capital city, yet alone those that's living in the suburban areas. So how can we switch the public's minds on this?
Yeah, it's very difficult, right, when you're not exposed to the alternatives. So that's what we're trying to provide again. But basically, we try to promote Bijak Mamili as the entry point for those who are confused about how should they be thinking about the election itself. And again, the reason why we don't put, so some folks actually ask why we don't put the track records of each individual legislative candidates, which is, as you said, there's over 9,000 of them, right? So we intentionally, chose not to do that because, again, it's an information overload, and most of the time it's not the most relevant information, because at the end of the day, this might surprise you, voting is actually determined by the political parties themselves. So even if you have a really good candidate, if they're running from a party that is corrupt or a party that is promoting a certain policy that's against what they believe in, they will still have to follow what the party is dictating to do. So this is why we focus just on the 18 political parties, because that's an entry point. But the individual is kind of the second layer. So make sure that you agree, you have the values that are aligned with the political parties, and then from there you can do your own research. We actually put the link to KPU's website where you can look at each legislative candidate's information. But again, start from the political parties, not the other way around. I think most of the time people have this false understanding that as long as I choose someone who looks smart or maybe looks likable, and then everything will be all right. But that choice will actually determine the kind of laws that we will live with in the next 5 years at least.
Yeah, because they're still living under the roof of the party anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about the party, not the individual itself. So starting from the party. Okay. So I think this situation sets a bad precedent for. Because a presidential system requires a strong parliament, right?
Right.
So how significant is the role of the legislative itself in the democratic system of a country.
Yeah, very
especially
much
this
so.
country.
Yeah, so as you know, the Indonesian political system divides power into three branches, right? There's the executive, the legislative, and the judicative, basically. And as long as a healthy democracy goes, part of the relationship should be that between the executive and legislative, they should keep each other accountable, right? This is where sometimes you would prefer to have some kind of opposition in the legislative, so that when the executive, let's say the president, proposes a policy that is actually bad for the people, the legislative is the one who can, stop him from doing that, or the other way around, right?
Yes.
So when the legislative is, trying to do something, the president's leadership, with his power here and there, can try to balance that through the executive act, like presidential regulation and what have you. So this is what's supposed to happen. So basically choosing both a strong presidential candidate and a good political party that can keep them accountable is part of having a strong democracy overall. And to be more specific, right, the parliament actually issue laws or bills first, and then they get discussed and be turned as laws. They get to monitor the performance of all the ministries, for example. So the performances of the ministries, they have budgeting rights. They can ask for the APBN budget every year and such. So it's very important, equally as important, if not more, that we also pay proper attention to the legislative candidates.
Yeah, I'm taking one keyword that you were saying before. It was very important, especially for this election for the legislative and also regional representative council. Do you think the public is aware of this, especially for the young voters? We know there's almost 50% of the one that's going to vote for the 2012 election are the young, from the younger generation. Do they see this focus and also seeing the importance of choosing their candidates for the legislative seats?
Yeah, not yet, unfortunately. I don't think we're there yet. But that's, again, why we need to inch slowly towards the ideal, partly through raising awareness. I mean, what we do at Bijak Memilih, we also try to engage the local communities as partners, because, I mean, we're very kind of like, the team are mainly in Jakarta and what have you. So we try to work with the local communities who know the context of the local. We've conducted actually 80 local roadshows, so offline events throughout Indonesia, across 30 to 40 cities and kabupaten. So this is part of basically trying to localize and raising awareness about this like overall importance of not only presidential candidates but also legislative ones. And what's also important is when we talk about legislative candidates, it's not just DPR, right? It's not just the national parliament. It's also the provincial and the city or district level parliament. So that's how basically like that focus needs to be spread equally.
Yeah, and they'll be the one that's really listening to the voice of the public.
Exactly.
They're going to be our friends who's going to give it up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so ideally there's someone that you feel like and you can pick up your phone and ask, like, oh, can you please, work on this law for me?
Yeah.
But each election, we kind of neglect them because we actually don't know them.
Yeah.
So that's the main issue right here, right?
Yeah.
And last but not least, to ensure a wise decision making in the legislative elections, what should be considered to avoid making the wrong choice?
Yeah. So we use this analogy at Bijak Memilih that basically what we're doing on February 14th is hiring a person for a specific job. So first, you need to understand what the job entails, right? Well, be it as the president or the legislative candidate, you need to understand that it's about making the law, running the government, overseeing the budget, and so on. So from there, basically we develop this criteria on what you need to look at from a candidate. Well, number one, if you want to hire anyone, it's about their track records, right? It's what you put on your CV. What have you done before? Because you can promise me anything. You can promise me you'll make everything free for whatever's worth. But it's about what you've done that proves to me that you are able to achieve what you promised you're going to do. So number one, again, open up the KPU website. Once you decide what the political party of your choice, look at the candidates in your dapil, in your electoral district, basically, to basically filter in which candidate you want to vote for. So pick someone with a clear track record or achievements. If they're already running in the previous election, take a look at what they've done basically in the past 5 years, and ideally also look at their financing. Who's paying for their campaign so far? Will they have both political and economic? Would they owe someone else, basically, right?
Because they need to give it back.
Yeah, exactly. So you want someone with no baggage, basically,
Right.
Okay.
with clear achievements. It's very difficult to find one that is like that.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. I'm from Jabar Tiga is my dapil. So the third West Java district. I looked at the KPU website, looked at every one of them, and it's very difficult. But at least we have to try to pick the least. I don't want to say least evil, but like the best of
The best out
what
of
you have
it. Yes, yes.
of the options that we have. Yeah.
So in regards to this, though, it seems that you're very diligent in, finding all this
Right.
information. So the information is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The information is out
It
there.
is.
You just need to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And,
And I mean, like, if you want to buy a new phone or a new
You
laptop,
research first.
you would research, right? You would
Yes.
spend an hour at least watching
Yes.
YouTube videos or what have you.
Yes.
And this is like something that's so more important than your gadget, basically.
Yes.
So spend an hour or two, take a look. It won't hurt that much, right? But
Yeah.
it's gonna determine the outcome very much.
And because the election is already nearby, but I just want to ask you in regards to for the next election after 2024, what would you like to see for the legislative contestants or the candidates for them to put, other than ballyhos or like posters and whatnot, to make it easier for the public? And this could also be a good, a good feedback also for the KPU and also for the government provincials.
Yeah, number one, I think each candidate should have a website. Just show us what you've done and what you plan on doing. That's it. And even if you want to put the banners up there, also do the same. Like just put what you actually want to do or what you've done, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And secondly, what I really want to see actually is better political parties. So parties that are more transparent about their recruitment process, about their what they say here, kaderisasi, like how they built their candidates, basically. Their leadership, their transparency of financing and decision making, because that would trickle down a lot on what the individual candidates can and cannot do in the parliament.
And fear not, we only have one more left to go, but we have Bijak Mamili also that has everything right there, linked to every information that is needed. With that said, Utami, thank you very much for being here with us. We're going to see more of you coming into the election.
I will for sure share this insight to my friends and family.
Definitely. It's such a great pleasure to have you here on board again, Ralphie. And as right now, folks, we're taking another short break. In the meantime, don't forget to follow our social media accounts. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and also YouTube at See Today News. And for the election, go to Bijak Mamili to know more of further information about your candidates. We have more upcoming right here at See Morning Show. Don't go anywhere.